The Autodromo Nacional Manza. This is a place that is built for speed in 1922, and it has been making history ever since. That straightaway has seen speeds of 230 miles an hour with machine. But today, we are here to find out what the human barrier, what barrier can be broken, the myth of the 2-hour marathon. Sal Masekela here with Paula Radcliffe and Craig Masbach, the two fastest commentators here. I am the slow one. This is, I don't know about you guys, but I didn't really get much sleep last night. I felt like perhaps I was going to be racing, Paula.
Well, I'm hoping that the guys going out racing today got a good night's rest. I mean, they've been preparing for this for a long, long time, but certainly everything this week has been really keyed in to this start time. So they're ready for it. We maybe didn't get as much sleep as would have been ideal, but conditions are ideal for them to go out and race.
Well, you know, the training of these three athletes often takes place early in the morning. We've seen the training of Eliud Kipchoge often 5:30 in the morning before sunrise. So no problem for him being ready to run at this hour.
And this is something that has been in the making for 2 years. The selection of the athletes, we'll get into the science and how hard Nike has worked with these athletes to make this possible, to see if we can really break this barrier, this myth that the whole world talks about. Whether or not you've run or not, you know that this is something, a milestone, and perhaps it's possible in our lifetime.
Welcome to Monza, the fastest F1 track in the world. We're here to witness an attempt at breaking one of running's most daunting barriers, the 2-hour marathon. This is the story of 3 of the best runners in the world, an Olympic champion, a world record holder, and a 2-time winner of the Boston Marathon. With them is a team of people who've crossed oceans to join them in their pursuit of history. Together, they believe they can do what has never been done. Run 26.2 miles in under 2 hours. This is Breaking2.
The drama, just that voiceover alone that we have right here was something very special. When you first heard about this, what did you think?
Well, to me, it fits into the history of track and field. Track and field's always been about breaking barriers. You think back to 1954, Roger Bannister, the first person to break the 4-minute mile. Then you go to 1968, Jim Hines, the first person to break the 10-second barrier in the 100 meters. So in 1998, when someone ran 2:06 for the first time, a little bit over 2:06, people started talking about, okay, the 2-hour marathon. And in 16 years, the record came down about 3 minutes. Now they're about 3 minutes away from the 2-hour barrier. And that just creates tremendous excitement.
And I think it's a really iconic step. It is something like akin to trying to put in terms of breaking through that 2-hour barrier. I think if you project on the progressions that we're going, absolutely think it's possible at some day, but can we accelerate it with the input of the science and the technology behind it to advance history, like something like 70 years or so?
It's incredible. We will get into more of that science and what it means, but let us meet these 3 truly elite athletes that were culled down from 60 athletes in the beginning to get to this place, to have this opportunity at history. Of course, Eliud Kipchoge from Kenya, one of the most dominant man alive in marathoning.
He's only been running the marathon for 4 years, but in the 8 marathons he's run, he's won 7 of them, including the Olympic marathon. And he just has this sort of zen about him. You know, he lives this monastic life. He's got these training partners, and he believes he can do it.
Yeah, he speaks about running as being more in the mind than it is in the body, as we see him training in Iten, Kenya.
Yeah, I mean, it absolutely is in the mind as much as the body, perhaps more so today. And I think that's the key difference. Eliud really believes that he can do this.
From Eritrea, Zersene Tedese. This man is very, very fast, and he has a background originally in cycling that gives him that endurance specialty.
Yeah, and I think the most exciting thing about Zersene is that actually he comes through in testing as the most efficient guy. His running economy is the best of the three of them, and he maybe has the most potential to improve. His PER is something like 210 for the marathon, but when he gets his fueling strategy right, then he can maybe make a huge stride forward.
Holding that world record in the half marathon, we'll see if he can keep that going forward for double the time. And finally, last but not least, the young man, Lelisa Desisa from Ethiopia. You see his personal best there at 2:04:45, 26 years of age.
At 26, 6 years younger than Eliud Kipchoge, 8 years younger than Tadesse. He has a youthful enthusiasm about him. He's a happy guy. And I think you bring that spirit to this possibility, right? You have to believe in the possible in order to make this happen. And I think his happy view towards life will take him a long way today.
Of course, at the elite level of marathon running, you need pacers. Pacers make a huge difference in how a race is won. Today, though, Paula, a special setup with these pacers, 32 pacers in total that we'll have at our disposal.
Yeah, a completely unique setup, and I'm really intrigued to see how this is going to pan out and how this is going to work. The caliber of pacers that we've got out there today is extremely high. The guys have been drilling all week, practicing those changeovers, and I know speaking to some of the pacers yesterday, that is the part they're most nervous about, is the time when they're going to draft in front of the elite guys and that changeover zone, if you like, because they're going to be switching around every lap.
Yeah, and that happening after each lap. Three of the pacers will cycle out. Another three will come in. Like you said, they've been practicing all week, but we've never seen it. We haven't seen it actually in race form until today.
Well, all the major marathons have pacers. That's become standard in Berlin, in London, and for the races that are paced. And they use those pacers to take the athletes as far as they can. But a lot of times the pacing breaks down. They don't keep to the pace. They don't shield the athletes properly. The science tells us to break the 2-hour barrier, you've got to be shielded from the wind. That will make a big difference for the athletes today if the pacers can deliver on the scientific promise.
Of course, the venue is also a very big star. We are here at this Formula One track, the Autodromo Nacional Monza, where we, of course, are not using the entire track. We are using this loop at 2.4 kilometers. Why this track? What makes this 2.4 kilometer loop so special and gives us a chance at really witnessing history?
I think the biggest factor is that it's an extremely controlled environment. So obviously pretty much completely flat. There's no elevation change at all over the course because they're starting and finishing on the loop there. And the surface is perfect. So it's perfect tarmac, which, yes, is what they race on a lot of times in major marathons. But if you contrast it with something like New York, for example, the surface is a much more giving surface. It's much easier on the legs because of just how perfect that tarmac is out there. And that's going to really help. But I think the biggest factor is that with it being on that loop, should they have a little bit of wind on one, then they're going to get a little bit of recovery and wind at their backs on the other section, and it's so much easier to transition in that optimal fueling strategy and the optimal pacing strategy.
And fast is what we hear. This is a fast surface. Speaking of fast, the fourth member of our team, he's really the pride of Philadelphia. This is a man for whom speed, he's no stranger. He set all sorts of records in his home city, and he is with us, actor, athlete, comedian, the one and only Kevin Hart. Good morning, sir.
First of all, that is an amazing introduction. These people are going crazy out here. How you doing? Hello. No, they're going wild out here. You know, guys, I don't know how you're able to talk so calmly with that amazing Zen music playing behind you. It sounds like you're in the spa. It sounds like you're in the spa and you're talking. I was out here feeling so comfortable. But you know what? I feel at ease because I'm where history will be made. That's right. I am standing at the finish line where today I am hoping and keeping my fingers crossed that history will be made because I was here first. Look at me. I'm here, right here. This is where they're going to cross. This is where everybody's going to celebrate. And I got to celebrate first because I should. Because I'm Kevin Hart and I do everything big first. Okay, I do big things first. So before any history is made, I'll do it. And I'm going to step across in hopes that these men today will step across in a dramatic fashion of doing this under 2 hours, which hopefully will be done. I am here with you guys. You're here with me. Let's help these guys make history. Let's do it big. Guys, I'll keep you posted because you'll keep me posted.
Thank you, Kevin. We'll be checking in to get more energy from the crowd and see how you're doing down there. We might even have you as a pacer, so stand by. We might need you. It is crisp and cold this morning. There is light humidity. From a condition standpoint, is this exciting race temperatures?
You know, they look all around the world to find the perfect place. Paul already talked about the track and the help that will give to the athletes. I think in terms of the temperature, we couldn't ask for more. That's why we've got these thick jackets on. We're not running around, but for the athletes, it's a cooling temperature, which they're looking for.
Yeah, 53 degrees Fahrenheit. Just why is it that cool temperature, why is that important for an elite level?
Well, it's extremely important because obviously they're moving so fast, they're producing a lot of excess heat, and they need to get rid of that, and they need to dissipate it, and they need every part of their body to be working optimally and not working overtime trying to get rid of that excess heat. So if we can get an ideal temperature, pretty much no wind, that's really perfect. The humidity, yeah, it's pretty high, but that's because we're so early. It's not actually, they're not going to be sweating a huge amount out there, and that's really, really important, and it's the conditions that they want. I think that's what's ideal. Everybody has their own perfect temperature, but to suit these three guys, this is pretty much spot on.
You both are no stranger to competing at a high level, at a world level. You marathon record holder. You won London and New York 3 times. I know, sir, that you have 30 sub 4 minute miles at competition. That's incredible. What is it like on race day when you have the mindset and you're here and you're about to approach the starting line? What's going through your mind on a day like today?
I think it's the culmination of everything, and the best feeling in the world is to step up to that start line knowing that you're in perfect form and that you've left no stone unturned in the preparation and you're really in shape, and there's almost like an excitement within just to get out there and get started and start bringing all of that hard work to fruition. And I think these guys have been planning towards this for such a long time. The most nervous point would have been last night and this morning before they started warming up. And once you start warming up, you start burning off a little bit of that adrenaline and you're just ready to go.
There you see a shot of one of my favorite people at Nike, Sandy Bodeker, 35 years at the company, and someone who has believed for a very long time at a core level that this idea of being able to test history below this 2 hour mark, well, there you see it. He actually literally wears the 1:59 and 59 seconds on his body in full belief. So you can just imagine what it's like for Sandy today, who is going to be starting this race.
Well, I think what's important, and Paula talked about getting to the starting line, it's about a team effort, and this is the ultimate team effort. You know, it's the athletes, it's their coaches, it's their training partners. It's also the scientists who've been behind them from the start, and people like Sandy who visioned this, who thought about breaking this barrier, and are all here today to make this happen.
Yeah, behind the scenes, there's a massive team. You talk about it, we'll get into it during the race, of this team of scientists that have worked at so many different levels in developing the gear and the shoes, and also working with them at a biological level to say, okay, here's the human body. We know what it's capable of just on its own with drive. What happens when we take a real deep dive look at what's possible and actually start to engineer what you're doing, what you're putting in your body, how you're training, sleeping, etc., to help get to this pace? That is exciting. That moves us forward as humans.
Absolutely, and I think that's where we'll get into that more during the race. But every one of their outfit, Elliot's there in the red, Lisa in the white, and Zezane in the blue. But everything has been optimized for them to fit their bodies perfectly and to work uniquely with them.
All the way down to their shoes, each customized down to the end. This is exciting. We are underneath a minute to go. I really didn't sleep last night. I think I got about 45 minutes, and I woke up and I felt like I'm part of something. I've witnessed all sorts of types of history in sports, but to be able to have this type of moment, this is incredible. As we stand by for the start. 15 seconds. as we see that arrow formation of the pacers that we talked about in our earlier meetings. What's the significance of the style that we see the pacers in this sort of 3 at the front, 3 along the back?
Well, we talked about the nerves and the anticipation of the 3 runners, but the pacers would have had a huge amount of nerves and adrenaline coursing through them to get into this formation. So we can see at the front there, that's actually Chris Derrick at the front, and I think it's Andrew Bumbelow behind him and Sam Schlanger alongside him. They'll be the front 3, and then the other 3 guys in a line behind them, they will be the second stage. So after the first loop, which actually will be a little bit shorter because they started on the back straight. So when they come through with 17 laps to go, the front 3 will peel off and the back 3 will move forward into that triangle formation, and another 3 guys will come in and sort of have another lap to get themselves on pace. The idea being that then they hit the pace perfectly, and that's going to be the key factor here today, is that the 3 athletes attempting the barrier, they have perfect strategy. They're not allowed to go too fast, so they can't mess up their pacing by going too fast too soon. They're held to what we hope is the perfect pace to break through the barrier.
What kind of responsibility do these pacers have as opposed to a normal style race?
Well, as we said earlier, all the major marathons have pacers, and they feel the same sort of responsibility. They're often training partners of the athletes in the different major marathons where they're doing pacing. Here it's a little bit different in the sense that there's a very precise goal of hitting, as Paula said, the exact time frames. They want to hit 250 per kilometer, around 434 per mile, around 1413 per 5K. Very precise planning around those times, even pacing throughout. And the goal of that, of course, is to get to the halfway mark on pace and then go from there.
Mindset-wise, not being in a position where you're economizing what your splits are going to look like, but really these athletes being let go, send it from the get-go. What do you think that's like, sort of, for their mindset to switch from what they're used to?
Well, I mean, they're pretty used to being dialed into performing from the go. It's a little bit more unique here because they're not actually racing to particularly win the race, although let's not get that confused from the start. Every one of these guys wants to be the first person to break through that barrier, and they want to be the first person across the line. So they are racing as well, but they're really focused on laying it all on the line and trying to commit from the beginning to basically what we call in marathon running kind of redline it the whole way, which is hold it on that line of the lactate threshold so that you're maintaining pretty much as fast as you can go in an even pace over the race without tipping over that line.
And here you see that first change of the pacers coming in. That will take place on a regular basis. The basic format is that each pacer will run a 5K before they go out and get a rest of about 26 to 28 minutes. They'll do half of that distance or one lap in the V shape in the front and the other half across a line behind that V shape. As Paula mentioned, they've been practicing all week, and those pacers take a great deal of responsibility for this. They feel like they're an important part of this, which they are, and their training has reflected that.
Sorry, I was just going to say that's the first changeover done smoothly, which is kind of what we wanted to see and what we wanted to see them relaxed into. It's probably also worth pointing out that the line is actually a big help to them too, because the green line you can see projected there is basically where they need to keep up to. So that's a big help for these paces. It's not like on a track where they're going through every 100 meters and they can see the splits. So to hit it perfectly, they're getting a little bit of help there.
And the exact formation, this V shape in front and the line across, that was developed from studies that were done in a wind tunnel at the University of New Hampshire. So they took groups of athletes into the wind tunnel, they tried different ways, and they also have informed the athletes where's the best place for them to stand behind the pacers to get the maximum drafting capabilities. I found it interesting that Zersine started his watch at the start. He didn't trust the very sophisticated timing that we have here.
You see that pace car at the front there that is being precision driven, because that pace car needs to stay at a specific speed. Well, there are actually two drivers, one to steer and one to keep the pace proper. 2 years in the making. We spoke about the science that has gone into this. And these athletes have been working in tandem with those scientists to get to this moment in which we try and see if we can see what's on the other side of the human spirit and get below these 2 hours and possibly make history.
It's not the absolute numbers that matter. It's picking the goal that you think is impossible. You know, it was just like the 4-minute mile. Why should it matter? You know, humans have 10 fingers. They like even multiples. That's probably part of this.
I guess all of these records are arbitrary in a sense. It's just because they become the next step in our sort of sporting heritage and development.
And I think that's where the 2-hour thing comes from. You know, why shouldn't we be able to do this?
58, 59, 60, 61, 62. Hey!
If the human body can do sub 2 hours, I think it was the greatest moment in athletics.
Nice job, Lisa.
Okay, we have 1 minute. 1 minute till the start.
When you plot out world records, it should take a couple decades to get to where we want to be. But no one's ever gone flat out from the gun before. That's what I think is so amazing about this project, is we're going to tell these guys, you're going to go for it from the gun. And whatever happens, happens. And that, I feel, is a recipe for greatness.
need to factor in. Pretty much the only variable they have to think about is if any sort of wind comes up. That's the only thing that's going to change out there.
One thing that helps is they're in a forest. They're surrounded by greenery. And I went for a run here yesterday. I put on the Concept shoes and didn't run anywhere near as fast and certainly not as far. But I felt the cooling breezes that they're feeling now. Not even a cooling breeze. It's just cool because of the forest that surrounds them, the greenery. Birds were chirping, and probably on the backstretch where there aren't a lot of people, they can probably hear the birds chirping, and it's just a great environment. All three of them train in beautiful environments for at least part of the year, and they should feel very much at home here.
And that produces extra oxygen into the air as well. So the fact that they have the trees, the fact that it even rained a tiny little bit when they were warming up. Haile Gebrselassie always used to say that he would have the track watered, and he liked it to rain a little bit before he would go out for a world record attempt, because he felt that produced a little bit more oxygen into the atmosphere, and he could just run that tiny little bit better.
It is so peaceful. There's no loud clanging for the most part. We have a small, intimate group of fans that were brought in here specifically, but it looks like almost a training run, obviously, besides the car in front of them and the folks that are there helping them with nutrition and hydration, but it looks like they're out on a training.
It does, and I wonder, is that significant? Because a lot of times when you come to a big race, the crowd is a big factor. I know when I ran in London, to have that huge crowd and the atmosphere behind you and contributing absolutely helps you to elevate it to another level. And that's maybe the only thing that's actually missing today. This is hugely significant to each of those runners. There's no question about that. But the actual only point on the course where they have a huge crowd there is when they come down through this area where we're sitting now, and they'll come through the changeover zone and past the pit lane. The rest of the time, it's very quiet out there, so that does help them to get into their rhythm. But I wonder also, does it mean there's a little bit missing?
Why do you think that this group ended up being selected? The elite group of East Africans in particular.
You know, we mentioned at the top of the show the history in Ethiopia of the marathon dating back to 1960 of Abiy Bikila, who ran barefoot through the streets of Rome to win that marathon. Kenya, the tremendous tradition. So in those two countries, as big as global football is in the rest of the world, or maybe baseball and American football are in the United States, running is equal to that in these countries. And there's a lore, there's a history, there's a respect, there's an opportunity to earn a living and to change your circumstances that is built into the history of running in those countries. In addition, of course, growing up at 7,000 feet or 2,500 meters altitude also is helpful. And you see runners from around the world who will travel to Kenya, travel to Ethiopia to train, to take advantage of that. So they have a variety of different advantages that led to them to be the chosen athletes who the scientists felt had the best chance to break this barrier.
Yeah, I saw that when I was in Eton, Kenya last year. There were mid-distance runners and long-distance runners from all over the world. But there was something about what you're talking about, meeting these kids who come from mostly farmer families and who make that choice to say, if I do this and I take advantage of my surroundings with the mindset that I have in my culture, I can take this to the next level. And having those examples. There were 60 athletes at the beginning to get to this 3. We'll learn more about the process of how we got Eliud Lelisa and Zersine.
With the athlete selection process, we started with scanning about 60 athletes where we could look at their past performances and start to whittle on down from there. From those 60, we then identified about 18 athletes that we would then bring in the laboratory, say, let's put you through the full test and see what you're really made of.
Nice job, Stevie.
We tested a number of different things. One of those was what the athlete's VO2 max is. So you can think of that as how big their engine is.
Well done. Perfect.
Another thing that we look looked at was how economical they are to run. You can think of this as your gas mileage. It's how much energy are you expending to run at a certain speed.
That's all my stuff. Very well. Very well, guys.
Out of those 18 or so, we came to these 3 being close to or at the 2-hour race.
Nice, Elliot. Great work.
Eliud Kipchoge, he's from Kenya. He's a world-class marathoner.
He is 100% committed. He's 100% confident in his ability to do this.
Lisa DeCisa is from Ethiopia,
Perfect. Just settle into that rhythm.
and he's most notable for his Boston Marathon wins.
Very good. Very good. 20 seconds. Keep looking forward. Just keep running, man. Keep running.
He just kept going and going and going. He definitely has the potential to do this. Zersane Tedesse, I really like Zersane. He's very fast.
Nice job, Z. What on, Z?
He has the world record in the half marathon. His physiology is exceptional.
They've all got different strengths and weaknesses, but I'm excited about all of them. They've got different characters and personalities, as you've seen. And it's going to be fascinating to see how the story unfolds.
We just saw a glimpse there, but it was very interesting to see the different levels that they were putting these athletes through, even with the treadmill that was specific, and they'd make sure they had the right sort of weather conditions when they were even running on the treadmills.
Yeah, every element of the preparation for this has been looked at and has been controlled and has been perfected as much as they possibly can. And I think talking to Andy yesterday, he was saying the biggest thing was that all 3 of these guys really bought into that, because you have to believe that this isn't going to hinder your training, that being strapped up to these machines is only going to bring something to the table and bring something to how well they can go out and perform. And absolutely every one of these 3 bought into that, wanted to take on board as much of the science as they could, and wanted to kind of look at all those little areas where that key difference can be made, even if it's a fraction of a percent.
Well, it's really interesting that Elliot, prior to the Breaking2 project, had never run on a treadmill. He'd never had his VO2 max tested. He'd never had his lactate threshold tested. He'd never been evaluated for his running economy. In fact, he'd only rarely worn a heart rate monitor. So to your point, this required a massive change in just how he conducted his business of running, and yet he embraced it because he saw the possibility to take himself to a new level.
And when we talk about the fact that we're trying to shave off just under 3 minutes here to break this barrier, it really puts it in perspective, and we see that this pace, put in the context what it's like at this pace, staying this driven.
I think we can't by any means underestimate the scale of what they're trying to do here, because it's a phenomenal jump. You can look at it and you can think the world record sits at 2:57, but to go under the 2 from there, it's huge. I mean, it's that kind of 6 seconds a mile or whatever it is that they have to pick it up, but that's a lot to be able to do that, and they're really pushing everything, and they need to maximize every little area.
Around 13 miles an hour as we see them making their way through this right-hand turn. We will check in with Kevin Hart, who is with someone far faster than him.
I am with the man, the myth, the legend. I'm talking about Mr. Carl Lewis himself. Carl, this is amazing what we're witnessing here today. Yesterday, I said, you know what, I want to experience. I want to see how fast these guys are actually going. So I decided to get out there with the Pacers, because that's the type of person I am. I got to witness it myself. So I got out there. You know what? I'm not going to talk to you about it. I want you to see it first. We got a clip of what I did yesterday. Can we show the clip to Carl, please, guys? Let's show Carl the clip. This is me with the Pacers. My new nickname is going to be Cheetah Feet. I look amazing. Wait a minute. Hold on. Start struggling a little bit, Carl. Yeah. Woo! Y'all keep going. I don't even think they know that I stopped running. That's how fast those guys are going. Those guys they're like gazelles. A lot of people don't know this about me, but I have asthma. That's what made me slow up. I don't have my inhaler on me. You got to take your hat off to the runners. Y'all go ahead. I mean, 4 minutes, 34 seconds a mile. That's booking. Those guys are like the speed of light. I got to go find my inhaler. Hey! I don't have my inhaler. They have their inhaler. Yeah, I mean, as you see, Carl, I'm an asthmatic. You saw that.
So how much farther could you think you could have gone?
Oh, I could do the whole 2026 if I wanted to, but I had my wedding ring on. That slows me up. Yeah, what did you think about my form, though, Carl?
I thought the form was good, until you started to slow down, but it's all you're clear when you decide, okay, let me let these guys go. Because, I know you, Kevin. I watched you run yesterday, and I know you have to let other people win sometimes.
See, that's what makes you a legend, Carl. You understand how to feed the ego. We're nothing without the ego. Anything that you have to say, man? I mean, listen, the guy that's done everything that you've done, of course, not only in the world of running, but just in your career, to see what we're seeing today, like, are there any thoughts? Like, what are your concerns? What do you think overall about this whole concept of these guys trying to break this record?
Oh, man, I think it's amazing. When I look at what they're doing, first of all, you start like 2 years ago and you start thinking about, I'm going to do something in 2 years from now. That's the biggest issue. I can't be sick in 2 years from now or feel bad or anything like that. And when you finally get to this moment, you've got one shot right tonight to do it. So when they started off, I know it was exciting for them, but also trying to keep your pace down. Did I sleep well last night? Was I too excited? Am I going out too fast? Gosh, my stomach's starting to cramp, but is that going to be too bad? There's so many things you're thinking about. And in our races, it was over in 10, 15 seconds. But they've got to do that time after time. Is this step right? Because that 1 second could be over 500 steps, and all of a sudden I'm 500 steps behind. So there's a lot for them to think about and stay focused for this 2 hours. I can't imagine how marathoners do it.
Yeah, I mean, the only reason why I couldn't do it, Carl, I'm lactose intolerant. So, my biggest thing is my stomach, my digestive system. So I don't know, what it's going to be like. My thing is, am I going to have an accident? That's the thing that's on my mind the most. But we don't need to get into me and my system. It's not about us. It's about these guys out here today. We're going to continue to watch and hopefully witness history. We're going back to you guys. I'm going to talk to Carl because I want to talk to him about breaking the speed of light because that's what I'm focused on. It's a 2-year plan. Back to you guys.
Thank you, Kevin. In the midst of that hilarity, Carl Lewis, who was in our research meeting yesterday, which I just had to put that into perspective. But he said something very interesting about that 2 years and looking forward and what you need to have on that day. As you see Lalisa here.
I thought Carl said something really smart. He said that a lot more can happen in 2 hours than can happen in 10 seconds.
Here's Lalisa and his training on this road.
Take Bird's flag. Sun's not flag. But he created aeroplane. Now, Breaking2.
We're saying, not only are we going to bring you in here, Louise, you're going to break a world record. And you're going to go under 2 hours.
It's one of the best tests we've had. This is fantastic.
That's a crazy idea.
Generation amma generation harawan ta'e yeroo kama saansii fi gara teknooloojiin waan adda addaa agarru dhugaa ta'e nutti mul'isa. Adeemsi saansii fi teknooloojii kun immoo wantoonni nama hojjechaa jiru na ilaallu.
Lisa's being really receptive and very willing to try any suggestions that we lay out. He wants everything we'll possibly give him and more.
Ulesat vetachi indeed no chalal way. Maybe this is not possible. Supported by science and technology. Maybe possible.
It says a lot when an athlete can say, by myself, maybe, not really. But that buy-in that you talked about, Paula, with Lisa's own words about the science and technology to say, hey, after this experience, yeah, possible.
Yeah, and it's that buy-in, that faith in the team. And I had to smile a little bit there on the clip when Andy's there. Come on, Elisa, this is the best yet. He says that every time. But what he's basically doing is building up the confidence. And that's key, to be told by the people who know, by the scientists, you know what, you're in amazing shape. You can absolutely go out there and do this. And there's no scientific reason why you can't. It's really up to you. It's the best feeling to get coming into it. And these guys will feed off that confidence that they get from the team around them and from the way that they feel in training to really come in here and push their minds, because it is as much about the mind as it is about the body out there today, and being able to stay focused right in the moment and on one foot in front of the other on that pace and just keep focused right here.
You know, of the three runners, he's the one that had a little bit of difficulty earlier in the year with a small injury. So, you know, the team aspect is important to him. And he said that he sees Kipchoge and Tadesse as friends. You know, it's not, he calls them brothers and friends. And that, you know, he really bought into not only the team aspect of the scientists and his own training partners, but his fellow comrades there.
Well, you think about a sport like this that is so individual, and these three buying into the idea that we're going to essentially be a team for a couple of years.
And trying to stay with the team here as well. I think we do have to point out that there is a tiny bit of daylight opening up there. And of the three, Lalisa, for me, is the one who's struggling first at this point. It may be that he'll go through a bad patch and he'll be able to get back on it. That happens in the marathon. Every athlete coming to the start line of a marathon knows and accepts there are going to be rough patches. There are going to be rough patches within this race where I really need to go to my special place, somewhere within me where I can kind of regroup, focus, get things back together and come through it, and have faith that you will come through it, because so many times in training you hit the rough patch and you come through it and you know you can come through it and come out the other side, but it's keeping that focus through the difficult spots that he's going through right now.
How do you avoid finding yourself in a panic when you get to that rough spot?
It's experience, I guess, and it's faith. Like I say, that you can get through it, but it's very hard. I mean, what's going through his mind right now is, oh my God, I can't stay on this. I can't stay with that pace, and that is the goal that I've been working to, let's face it, for a couple of years coming into this. That's where I need to be, and I'm falling back. And that panic is really dangerous, because it can paralyze your breathing, paralyze your muscles, and he's really, really struggling.
And, you know, you mentioned that you have bad patches and you come back from them, but knowing, you know, a lot of times what runners are able to do in marathons is come back because the pace slows down and lets them back in the race. We see this on the track sometimes. The pace is not going to slow down, and he knows it. It's relentless. It's going to continue. And that's going to make it very difficult for him to get back. So at this point, he not only has to run that pace, he has to run faster than they're running to get back into it. They will give him pacers at some point to try to help him, but it's going to be very, very difficult.
Yeah, so they talked about that pacer strategy. They have the 32 pacers, and I think they have 18 guys that are rotating as per the plan. And then behind that, they have another 5 or 6, 7 maybe that may jump in now with Lalisa that he's dropped off. But if another one of these two drops off, they will move up and they will abandon the back guy, because they don't have enough paces to keep covering that. The other floaters, if you like, the other 6, 7 paces are reserves in case there's any problem with any of the front 18.
Well, we talked about at the outset how long they would be able to stay together at this pace. We see a shot of Eliud and
Zerzine checking his watch there, just making sure that the big clock in front of him, maybe he hasn't looked up and clocked that. And then that often happens, I think. A lot of times in big races, you're just focusing on yourself and you're not aware of what's around you.
Well, here's some perspective on Zerzine Tadesse and his training.
እንደገና ኣብቲ ትሰርሖ ትሬን ድማኒ ናይ ባሕቂ ትሬን ክሰርሕ ኣለካ ዳሕር እንድሕር ኣሎ ኩሉ ግዜ ኣምላኽ ግዘካ ንሓወት ማለት እዩ።
Zerzine was head and shoulders above everybody we tested, and we didn't even have to look at the numbers. We basically saw him on the treadmill, and immediately he shines like a different character in the way he runs.
There's no question that he has the physiology. His running economy is exceptional. You look at his numbers on the treadmill and on the track. You know, you could argue, is our best prospect.
2:10, 2:11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Excellent. Perfect.
He's barely making any lactate. He's barely breathing hard. And it's world record marathon pace. As a monster. His numbers are nothing short of extraordinary. He holds the half marathon world record. Not surprising at all. What is surprising is that he was unable to make a great leap to the marathon.
I don't think that he really knows how much to drink, how often to drink.
I think his deficiency is something that we can overcome.
The asatatian ay may siguro train magagawa ka. Susuro narosit ka. They can magaling.
In my opinion, he's the dark horse. And if I were Lalisa or Elliot, I would be very concerned if I come into the last mile with Zersney Tedesse.
You know, one of the major differences for him is that he trains by himself for half the year in Madrid, away from his family, no particular training partners. He's kind of on an island, and he does his hardest workouts by himself, which is really different. I mean, when you think about the large group that Elliot has in Kenya, he's sort of quiet and mysterious, which makes this all very interesting. But, you know, Mo Farah, a four-time gold medalist in the Olympic Games, says that this is the guy he fears the most. Wow.
Yeah, I think his potential is, it's really there, and it's really tangible. And to be able to have this opportunity now to get his fueling strategy right and to find out, because it's without question he is the best half marathoner probably that there's ever been on this planet, but certainly that we have right now. And it's that unique question of, yeah, as much as the science can say and as much as they can say you're built for the marathon, it's a unique beast. And sometimes you can get it right, and sometimes you just can never quite make that step up. And it's that fascination, I think, for me, that is so interesting with Zersney. With the fueling, can he really hit it and hit his potential at the marathon? Or is it just always going to be that distance that doesn't quite fit?
And this blistering pace and being able to sustain that for not just a half marathon, but for this entire marathon, as we take a look at the pacers at the front.
So here we get a look at exactly how that changeover takes place. There's 150 meters where in the first 50 meters, the group exits that's in the lead. Other runners move up, and then in the second 100 meters, the three new runners come in. I had a little worry about this when I first heard about it, because I wondered, that's a tough job to come into the race. One, at the right pace, and two, not to disrupt the runners behind them. But so far, it's gone very smoothly.
And it's not a lot of space.
No, it's a short area, and I was talking to Bernard Lagat. I'm not sure if this is him coming in now. I haven't spotted him yet come in, but he said that he was really talking to Kipchoge about this and saying, you have to not, because the instinct is when the first guys peel off and the next row moves up, your instinct is to follow them and move up. But what they have to do, and he said, give us space, man. Give us space to get in there, because you need to leave us 2-3 meters at least to be able to slot in as that second row of pacers, and then to be able to get back on pace. And that's what they're doing really, really well, because the actual racers here today, the three guys, so now the two of them, have not practiced this with the pacers. The pacers have been drilled over and over again, but they didn't want to. They said, no, just tell us what's going to happen, so we're absolutely clear with what's going to happen, but we don't want to actually practice it running around.
Why do you think that was, that the racers chose to say, we'll leave it for game day?
I think it's prep. I think it's the fact that actually the day before and 2 days before the marathon, when the pacers have been drilling it so much, you don't really want to be running too much at race pace. You want to be resting as much as possible and saving every bit of energy for race day.
As we are just under the 1 hour mark and at the 20 kilometer split.
So yeah, 20 kilometers passed through there in 56:49, and the pace has slipped back a little bit from that 1:59:30 they were on earlier, but still predicted to go through on pace for breaking through that 2 hour barrier.
And it looks to me, Paula, that Zersney has had a couple of hard moments in this last lap. He drifted back one time, and you could say, well, maybe it was because they were going to change the pacers and he wanted to give them the room that you talked about. Then he drifted back again, and now he just seems to be having trouble holding on. Obviously, he's not getting the benefit of the pacers at this point.
No, he's not. I think that's the situation we talked about, when now he will get that draft of the second group of pacers come in. to help him, but that's significant daylight there, and that's not intentional. So he may be able to pick up and come back from that, but it's very dangerous for him at this point in the race to be losing contact like that.
As we saw Elliot looking firmly in that group of the lead pacers, and that's what you talked about, this second group here.
Yeah, so that was the second group, a quick shot of them with Lalesa running, but some of those will now peel off, and they may split 3 and 3 and run a little bit with each of them as long as they both keep going. But what they had talked about yesterday was the fact that they would focus fully on the second guy at this point.
We see Kipchoge. He is looking strong. Again, of the 8 marathons that he has run, he has won 7. And we'll have a look at his training process over the course of this last couple of years.
Sport means teamwork. If you are only one, then you can do nothing. But if you are more than one, then you can do great things.
There was this sort of serenity when the Kenyans were training in particular. Kipchoge's got this quietly dominant personality. He just exudes class.
The sports are pure profession. I'm treating it with total respect.
30.2, I'll make it right.
I think Elliot is a well-oiled machine. He's sharp. He knows exactly what he's doing. Very intelligent.
He thinks a lot about the mind as well as the body, sort of preparing his mind to be able to run this fast.
Running is thinking.
We'll do 3 minutes here, okay? Very nice, Elliot.
You need to focus fully and think positively.
Right now, when we talk to Elliot, he says, I will break 2 hours. Absolutely comes out with it and says it. I will break it.
He's very confident. He has real belief in his own ability. He was leading pretty much the whole way.
Good run, Elliot. Well done.
Passion is a choice. You need to choose to be great. It's not a chance. It's a choice.
I love his philosophic approach to his sport, and as I mentioned earlier, the sort of monastic lifestyle that he has at his training camp, where he shares a 10 by 10 room with another runner. He pulls up water by hand from a well. He washes his clothes in a bucket every day after he runs. He's not taking, he's not pretentious in any way. This is a man who's a multimillionaire based on his running, but he keeps true to what has gotten him there. And he records every workout over the last 14 years. Wow.
I like that last quote of his. That he says it's a choice, and in the manner of how he lives, those are all choices. Especially when the sport that you love has given you the opportunity to afford a lifestyle that goes away in the manner in which you grow up with. And last year, when I was in Eton, that was something that struck me about a lot of the runners. They lived, even the most successful, for the most part, lived in a very humble lifestyle to sort of stay in that focus.
Yeah, and it's what works for them as well. It's the way that they've grown up, and the way that they know preparing enables them to go out and succeed in this. And it's a choice. But I think it's also a privilege for them to be able to get this opportunity to put everything into being able to accomplish the best that they can do and find out whether they can break through these barriers. I think for all of us that have been lucky enough to take part in athletics and to take part in the sport of running, it's a privilege to be able to get out there and do something that you love doing every day. And it is a passion for Elliot as well. He gets a lot back from running as much as he gives to the sport of it. But he has a huge talent. And I think that's the thing that really struck me watching him win the London Marathon in 2016. Then he absolutely has the potential to take down that world record officially, and he's almost sacrificed this to just see really what he's capable of with the whole support that he can put in today. And so he's fully committed to this because he really believes that he can be the first man to break through that barrier.
You see, he is the lone of the three. It almost looks like he's running with a security detail at 13 miles an hour. And to see the manner in which Desisa and Tadesse have dropped off, it really it really puts in the context. These are the best runners in the world, and this pace has gotten the best of both of them, and they've been training specifically for this moment for 2 years.
And that just underlines, I think, the enormity of the feat that they're trying to achieve here. We probably can't stress enough of that. If you set a treadmill at the pace that they're running at now, and you tried to maintain it, most of us could not do that for more than kind of 20, 30 seconds, if that. Some of the paces out here are at world-class level. And they have had to train and really prepare. Bernard Lagat was really nervous about, am I going to be able to hit the pace, and am I going to be able to do it right out here today? So to be able to maintain it over the marathon, I mean, we're talking about the fact that Zezene and Elisa have dropped off this, but they've still gone through halfway in a pace that would win most major half marathons going on.
Yeah, and I think you've said this a couple of times, and it can't be said enough, frankly, which is to do what they're setting out to achieve will take a special day. And Joan Benoit Samuelson said it, that it'll have to be a rare day for one of these athletes where everything clicks. At this point, the only one that seems to have that chance is Eliud Kipchoge.
Yeah, discussing it with Joan last night as well, she also said that there's one quote about this, and that it's possible, but it's not probable. So they have to go and really look for that and really search for that possibility, because it is about everything just coming together on the day. And these guys are used to that. That happens every time you step to a start line. But this time, more than any time before in their careers, it really has to be perfect today. There is Bernard now in the second pack, in the center there, and slotted in right behind him, focused just on his heels. Eliud he basically hasn't moved from that position in that formation. Even when the three athletes were all together, he was very much the alpha male, if you like. He was the guy who's controlling it. It's the way he trains too. It's the way he's used to, almost without words, dominating the group and getting them to run where he wants them to do, and just focusing. You can see his head is barely moving, and he's just absolutely in that place inside him, focused on what he's aiming to do today.
As you see in that shot over the shoulder of Kipchoge, the scientists on the bike communicating, looking at stopwatches. The science is really the key to this possibility at Breaking2.
The sun wasn't here.
Elite athletes have a very good innate sense of their bodies. My goal is to tell them something they don't know.
68, 69.
What do I really have under the hood? That's the question. Should we tweak this? Should we change that? If we make this little change here, here's the difference in the expected outcome down the road. We're taking the latest advances in training, latest advances in technology, algorithms, and mathematics that go into predicting how they're going to perform. What we're saying is, can we get a bunch of marginal gains that makes the impossible possible?
Sometimes we develop technology just to help us collect data. We had them swallow a core sensing pill. Wherever it is in their intestinal system, it's giving that temperature.
Core body temperature right now is 37.4.
We're also going to put skin temperature sensors on them. We look at the gradient, or the difference between what their core is and what their skin temperature is. Because if it's cold on the skin, they're getting rid of all that heat.
The feeding during the event is so crucial. There's a certain amount of energy that you can store to enable you to run at a certain speed, but it isn't enough to take you beyond about 20 miles normally. So it's absolutely essential that we feed enough carbohydrate in a drink at the right times. But it's going to be crucial that they practice that. That could make at least a couple of minutes of difference.
The interesting part of this story is not all the kind of scientific witchcraft we can do. It's this sort of journey of taking the three guys, all of whom are really talented, and telling them, here's what your data shows. Of course you can do this. And that, I feel, is a recipe for greatness.
You know, that was that team effort that we talked about, and people putting their heart and soul into trying to find every which way. The investigation that you've mentioned that went on for years, because you're talking about a 2.5% improvement to get that 2 minutes and 57 seconds that's needed, and no stone was left unturned. I love some of the stories about they actually thought of creating a sort of marathon spike that people would wear and gain an advantage in that regard. But once they put it on the athletes said, yeah, that doesn't work very well.
2 years of, I'm sure, all sorts of trial and error, trying to find what works. Biomechanics, the coaching, and even the science that we'll talk a little bit about later. But the science down to every single piece of garment that they're wearing.
Yeah, so the garments that they're wearing, you probably noticed that the three runners are wearing half tights, and a lot of the pacers are in the traditional slip shorts, split shorts that men will race in. And the reason behind that is the compression technology. So basically, when you run and you have the impact, the muscle oscillates, and as the muscle oscillates, that causes slight micro tears and slight micro fatigue. What the compression does is reduce and minimize that fatigue by basically holding the muscle tight around the quad and hamstring, and they've been specifically engineered so that around the hips, compression is not as graduate, is not as tight, to allow for more hip movement as you naturally would when you're running. They've got the wind reduction technology in the small spikes that you see, just to optimize aerodynamics there, and they're actually wearing it stuck to their lower legs as well, on the areas of the body that move the fastest through the air, to minimize that reduction there and that drag, and to hold also the vest off their chests to allow their body to dissipate that heat as efficiently as possible and not get heavy.
Yeah, I mean, it was just an incredible team. 20 people working on the team that came up with lower weight apparel. Just talking about the apparel, it was fit to the specific athletes. The main interest was comfort. They didn't want any distraction. And they talked to the athletes. They listened to the voice of the athletes about all of these issues that you talk about, the fatigue, even the grip of the sock, how the sock fits to the foot and how the sock within the shoe fits to the shoe. That was all coordinated.
And it's interesting when we look at all those factors, the biomechanics, the coaching, design, the nutrition, etc., all to that, get to that percentage number, all these little things to get to that 2.5% to come down. It's incredible, all these little factors to try and do what's before now been impossible. We're still impossible until it happens.
Absolutely, and to tap in as well to what the athletes want. And I think that's the key factor we're talking about here. They actually went and said to a lot of elite marathon runners, what do you want from us in terms of the shoe? And the answer was probably not what they were expecting in the lab. So we talked about they were trying to develop towards a marathon spike, to a really minimalist shoe. And what they heard from the athletes is, we don't want to feel the concrete or the tarmac on our feet. We want to have that cushioning there, but we want it to be really light, and we want to have the responsiveness. And that's where they've gone with the shoe. It is with this carbon fiber plate buried within the foam, which basically absorbs all of that shock and allows the plate to return as much energy as possible without being too hard on the legs and causing the legs to feel dead.
When we walked into our production meeting yesterday, and there was a pair of these Nike Zoom Vaporfly Elites on the table, as soon as I first picked one up, you know when you expect something else in your hand, and it was so light, and it was so different than anything that I've ever felt before.
Even you could run fast in those. Yeah. What the athletes said, Paula was referencing, is they wanted the right weight, not the light weight. And that was the real insight that led to this footwear being developed.
And the ZoomX foam that's there returns 80 to 90% of the energy.
Well, when we say that every piece has been designed specifically for them, you will see what detail we mean in this piece.
The notion of us doing what we're doing is a completely audacious idea, and that was so inspiring for our design team from the get-go, not only functionally but aesthetically.
You want zero distractions for the athlete. You want the athletes to be able to run and not think about their footwear. You don't want their feet to hurt. You don't want laces to come untied. And the number one thing is comfort and fit.
We want it to be perfect for you. So we're going to tune every piece of product that we have, whether it's the shoe or the apparel, the sock, to make sure it's right for you.
These shoes are one-to-one for the athlete, so it's completely individualistic. This has grown through conversations with those three athletes. Leveraging digital design and data is a big, big part of our design process.
We'll be scanning your foot, so then we can adjust the upper here and then be able to send you or bring to you shoes that actually fit.
They've never really experienced that level of customization before. Beyond tuning on a pixel level, we can control where they have comfort, where they need containment, where they need breathability.
Perfect garments for your measurements. Thank you. One of the areas that we personalized the product for the athletes was for them to be able to print on the shoes. Zarsene asked for his wife's name to be on the shoe. Lisa wanted the names of his mom and dad on the shoe. And when we visited Elliot in January, what he wanted printed on the side of the shoe was beyond the limits. People put limits on themselves, or other people put limits on them. And for him, it's about, we should all think about pushing beyond those limits and not just take what's given.
As we see, Eliud Kipchoge still in the hunt of being beyond the limit in this lead group. And when we talk about this track being here at Monza, and you think about a Formula One team or a race team, it's all about the details. And they're trying to get these lower coefficients to just get just some little thousandth of a second less time when they're engineering the vehicles. And to see that being applied to an athlete in this level with the shoes and the clothing, incredible.
You know, no better expert than Kevin Hart said that the footwear looks like a spaceship for your feet.
And it's totally true. And these guys have as much behind them as it's possible to have at this day today in terms of the technology and everything like that. And absolutely, it's moved on hugely from where we were even 10, 20 years ago in marathoning and in road running. But let's not forget, this is about the human inside there as well. And as much, the shoes are not going to break this barrier on their own. It's all about the athlete trying to do it. It's all about Eliud Kipchoge and that mindset of, until I try, I don't know where my limit's going to lie. And unless I really go for it and I really stretch, I can't fail by finding that I can't do it. I just find that it's going to take me a little bit longer to get there. So if he didn't by any means fail today, he learns something still, and he can still grow from that and come back again. But what he's absolutely saying is, I'm just going to take it to the well today. I'm going to lay everything on the line that I have and see, am I good enough yet?
Well, that choice that he made for what he printed on the shoe, to go beyond the limits.
I like what he said. You know, he calls, as we heard, the 2-hour barrier completely arbitrary. He said it could have been 1:55 as far as he was concerned. He would have trained for that if someone had aimed him, as preposterous as that sounds. But, you know, he did take advantage of personalizing it, and he put his wife and children's names on the sock liner on the inside of the shoe. So he's got the message about beyond the limits outside, and the family is all inside.
We get a really incredible glimpse here of this transition.
And he's really getting to be a pro at that, dropping back and allowing the new paces to slip in.
Well, there are some lucky, passionate runners from around Europe that had the opportunity to be here today. Some of them camping out here on the grounds. Kevin Hart is a man of the people, is in with the people.
That's right. I am a man of the people, so it's only right that I come down and embrace and engage with the people. I'm standing here with Corey and I'm with Gabs. They're from London. Huge fans of running. Excited to be here. I want to get some words from the people. Corey, what does this event mean to you?
To me, Oh, thank you. To me, this is absolutely ridiculous. As in, we watch marathons happen out on the road. We watch them happen on television. But to be here, right here, watching history happen is incredible. To watch people run at this pace is ridiculous. As in, I couldn't even keep up something like this for a mile, let alone a kilometer.
Yeah, well, you need to watch me run, Corey, because I'm a blur, okay? Gabs, talk to me right now, okay? From what I understand, you're an amazing athlete. You're from London as well. I know Corey is a coach, but I want to talk to you. What does this mean? How do you feel? Are you just as excited?
I mean, yeah, this is like our Everest. It's insane just to watch these guys out here trying. And the fact that he's still on pace, he's going for it, super exciting. We're here with all our friends, which is also really fun, camping out. But yeah, it's insane. It's really insane.
You know, remind me to get you guys tickets to my next track and field event, because I think you guys will be blown away just at some of the events that I do. It's the 10-yard dash. I don't even know if you guys have it in the UK, but I hold the record in the 10-yard dash. Whatever, it's a long story short. This isn't about me, okay? It's about the event. It's about making history, and I'm glad that we can have people like yourselves here to be a part of it. This is really, really dope, and I think what's even cool is just how you see people embrace it. People that are about the sport that come and support. That's what it's about. It's not just about what you're doing. It's about the support that you get while doing it. History can't be made without support, and they're going it. They got it. I'm sending it back to you because we're going to go back to doing what we do best, and that's cheering. I'll see you later, guys.
Thank you, Blur. We will not even refer to you as Kevin Hart anymore. Only Blur. And if you follow Kevin Hart on social media, one of the incredible things he's done in the last couple of years, actually motivating his fans to come out and go on runs with him wherever he's touring in the country. And it's crazy. He puts something out on social media, and thousands of people show up, and he's got people running. Very, very inspiring. So while he does make jokes about his running and Blur, he really is about that life, as we'd say. But this man, Eliud Kipchoge, is about that life. Look at the focus, the determination in his face. But there's also, maybe it's just me, that there seems to be an ease despite what he's under.
Yeah, I mean, he is the master at keeping as much of his body relaxed as possible, and that sounds like a bit of an oxymoron. How can you be relaxed when I need all my muscles to be firing at the right time? But all of his facial muscles, there's zero effort going on there, zero wastage of energy. He's very efficient in the parts of his body that he can really kind of turn off, and focusing on the parts that need to be functioning. A quick update on the pace. They went through the 25 kilometers in 1 hour 11:03, which is projected marginally now under that 2-hour barrier.
That is exciting as we're at this 1:22 mark. We've talked so much about these shoes. We will show them to you now more in detail to see what it is that they are running on.
The origin of the footwear goes back 3 to 4 years. Early on, we went down the path of pursuing the ultimate lightweight racing flat. That was the conventional thinking in marathon footwear.
I'd like for you to try this on and see how it fits.
We pivoted after speaking to the athlete and hearing that concrete really hurts. And if there was any way that we could cushion them from the ground, that would be a big win, but not do it with a weight implication. And we started to create the product that you see today, which is a big shift from marathon shoes in the past.
The shoe that you've been running, do you like how soft it is?
The foam is special because it's ultra lightweight and it's ultra resilient.
So you get better cushioning, better protection from the ground, but still have the overall shoe be really light. And then we have this plate as well with a very unique geometry. It's really a strong material. It's a carbon fiber. And so it provides added propulsion.
It's actually the system of this and the foam coming together that delivers the magic. In the process, we were exploring some aerodynamic insights. What we found was if you elongate the shoe, you can actually reduce drag. And that's what led to this elongated heel shape.
I can say it's good, but I need comparison.
So if you could try these on and just run around a little bit.
So what we believe we've delivered here is the optimal weight to cushioning to responsiveness relationship. It was super special for me to be here in Monza and see Eliud cross the line in the marathon test in the shoe. It's emotional and it's amazing to see that, you know. We've been working tirelessly for the last 3 years on this, and to see it come to life and be used by somebody of that caliber in an event that's this audacious, I mean, it's a dream for a designer.
There's only a small number of these Zoom Elites available, but you can get a chance to get them yourself. So you can log a 5K run in the Nike Plus Run Club app to be entered. Make sure you go to nike.com/justdoit. More information with the terms and conditions. And we are joined right now by Ed Caesar, author of 2 Hours. You're also a contributing writer for Wired. I've been following a lot of your writings in the last couple of months. This must be something special to be actually here witnessing this attempt.
It's crazy for me. I imagined how this might play out, and there's a guy that is 40 minutes away from doing the thing that I imagined, and it's such a privilege to be here.
You did so much interesting work in going to Kenya and spending time with the greatest marathoners in the world. You gleaned some real information and gems about what makes them so special at this distance, their training, the kind of monastic living. What were some of your biggest takeaways?
I mean, I think this particularly relates to Elliot, who's now running so fast and so well here. He has built his career over a period of 15 years, and he has built it slowly by slowly from the track to the marathon. They really build on solid foundations. There's nothing special. It's just hard work.
Well, you mentioned coming from the track, and one of the stats that really jumps out at me is that he's run a 350 mile in his career. In fact, his personal best in the mile is faster than the personal best of Matthew Centrowitz, the American who won the 1500 meters at the Olympics in Rio. So that kind of speed is unprecedented for a marathon.
Yeah, and you see it, you know, in the final stages of the London Marathon, in the final stages of big city races, he can really shift. I mean, what we saw in London when he was cruising down the mile just before the finishing line was electrifying, as anyone who loves any kind of sport, to see an athlete like that. And really enjoying it as well. Big smile on his face and moving so fast. I mean, it was a privilege to watch that.
Looking casual in the most not casual of situations.
I mean, look at him now. This guy is doing something that nobody has ever done before. Nobody's ever run a 2-hour pace for this long. And there isn't any strain on his face. There's still a long way to go, and a lot of things can happen in the last 35 minutes of a marathon, as anyone who's run one knows. So it's not a done deal, but he looks good.
We were talking about the footwear, and you had an interesting comment about wearing the footwear, because you've worn the prototype in some of your training. You said it makes you feel as if you're on wheels, not legs.
You rock forward in a very unusual way. I have actually run around here in the shoes, and they propel you forward in a really unusual way. It's actually quite unsettling until you get used to it. Obviously, these guys have had a long time to get used to it, and I think a lot of good runners, club runners, you know, hobby runners are going to get a lot out of them, but they take a while to get used to, I'm sure.
Now we see at the 30K, he's just a second over the desired pace, still projected to run the 2-hour marathon, which is incredible, as Ed says, that he's still holding this pace. And there's a lot of chatter in the running world over the last several months about whether this was possible, and people were giving different sorts of percentage guesses. I think there's even a betting line in London on this. And, you know, you were so deeply involved in this whole notion of 2 hours over the last several years, writing your book. Tell me about this moment now, and you were putting it in a little bit of perspective. Did you vision this as the way it would play out?
I always thought it would take an event like this, specialized event, to do it. And, you know, I thought of some things that you could try. The pacing strategy, I think, has been working really well here. They seem to have been able to move the teams in and out very seamlessly. But the way that I thought about it was that you would maybe want to do it much colder than you're doing it today. And in fact, a lot of the athletes would say actually they feel uncomfortable at those temperatures. So there's a division there between what the science tells you and what the athletes are telling you. But certainly it seems to be working at this point. I always thought it was an outside shot. It's a hard thing to do. It's a crazy thing to do. And I still think there's a long way to go in this. You know, it's still an outside shot, but there's one guy with a big chance. I mean, he's just taking on some fluid there, and he doesn't look like he's broken stride or taken any pace off, really. he's still looking good. I mean, he may have slowed down slightly in the last 5K. Is that right? Just by a couple of seconds?
1 second.
1 second.
Craig, how important is the hydration factor at this period of a race?
Well, this is the critical moment. I mean, the last 6 miles of the race, in this case, you know, the last 24 minutes or so, 25 minutes, you know, the body, it can only go so far with the storage that it has of glycogen. The fluids, there's, you know, some estimate that they'll lose 2 liters of fluid during the course of this 2 hours. So if you're not constantly replacing that fluid and adding energy, you're not going to make it, as Paula was saying earlier.
There was a study done on Haile Gebrselassie at the 2007 Berlin Marathon, where he lost something like 10% of his body weight over the course of breaking the world record. I mean, that is astonishing. You know, the amount of these guys are sweating is just crazy. I think it's worth pointing out at this point that we are witnessing something special, even if he doesn't do it. Nobody has ever done this. And Eliud Kipchoge has already shown that he belongs to a line of runners that starts with Spiridon Luis and goes through all the greats, you know, Clarence DeMar in Boston, you know, guys like Zatopek. This guy belongs with those great names. He is the premium marathon runner of this generation, and he deserves to be celebrated whatever happens on, you know, in the remainder of this race.
I think he deserves to be celebrated because he's trying this. You know, in some ways, the easier decision might have been to go to London,
for sure.
Again, where I felt, and I'm sure you were there last year, I felt that he was surprised when he saw how close he was to the record. Had he known what pace he was on, he would have been able to break the record, the world record in London, as we see him at 30K. One of the amazing things of his races in London, particularly his first victory, is he was running paces about what he needs to run today in the 25th and 26th mile. And he's, you know, we've talked about how hard these latter stages of this effort are, but the fact that he was able to run under 4 minutes and 40 seconds per mile towards the end of his London marathon races is significant when we think about what he's got to do here.
Well, that tells you something, but it's different running those paces when you haven't run them in the first 24 miles to doing what he's doing now. Is it possible that he's just slowing a tiny bit? That maybe they're losing a couple of seconds here and there? I mean, it's definitely, they can get it back, but they're just slightly outside 2 hours. But it looks like they're pretty much keeping a rock solid pace.
You know, talking about pace, there was a lot of discussion before about what the optimum way would be to run this race, since both world records, Paula Radcliffe's record on the women's side and the men's world record, were set with negative splits, where people ran faster in the second half of the race than the first half. And here the decision was to run an even pace. Now, you know, there was some controversy about that. There was some thought that maybe the physiology suggested that you should run negative splits, but the psychology said you had to stay on this pace from the start.
Yeah, I mean, there are various schools of thought. All of them come down to around even pace. So you can be slightly negative or slightly positive, but you're going to come down to around even pace. Otherwise, it's, you know, it's impossible to do it.
As we are an hour and 32 minutes here, 5 laps to go, just under 5 laps. What are the factors here in this last stretch of the race? What can go wrong?
Everything. Everything can go wrong now.
Yeah. The wheels can come completely off, to take the metaphor that Ed had used in describing the shoes as feeling like wheels. Yeah, this is the toughest part of any marathon. I don't care who you are. You mentioned your own experience, and you know, he's left no room for himself, right? He's put it out there on the line. He's run the pace that he was asked to run, and he's in completely uncharted territory, as Ed said. No one has any idea what it feels like to be at this point. Now, he does have one data point, which is when they ran a bit of a test run here, and he ran a 59:17 half marathon afterwards. They said, how did it feel? He said, I was running 60% effort. Well, if 60% effort got him to 59:17, maybe he can be at this point of the race and still be feeling pretty good.
I don't know. He looks good, right?
He looks strong, and his face hasn't lied the entire time. Ed, thank you so much for joining us. Hopefully, we will be toasting history, and we'll take another look here at what we've been talking about, this importance of this last 7 kilometers.
The marathon is 42 kilometers. And the last 7 kilometers are extremely difficult. The body has undergone pounding on the joints, pounding on the legs, and the mind just wanders. I don't want to do this anymore. I don't really want to complete this marathon.
That's really when the energy that's stored within inside your muscles is gone away. So that's why if people don't take on nutrition throughout the race, they get to that point and they've just got nothing left. To use a running term, they'll bonk. You have to pump your arms, you have to move your torso. You're just doing everything you can to keep one foot hitting in front of the other. Your body's screaming stop, your head's screaming stop, your mind's screaming stop, everything's telling you to stop.
The mind will take over and say, body, you must keep going. I'm going to venture over the wall, see what happens, and I'm going to go for it.
As we are joined now by Alex Hutchinson from Runner's World. And Alex, as Ed Caesar just pointed out, in this moment right now, at this mark, we are in uncharted waters.
Yeah, every step they're taking now, this is the fastest a human's ever run. So it's pretty cool at this point.
You've thought a lot about the science of this. You've written about it. Tell us exactly what's going on with him now. What's his body feeling and what's his mind thinking?
Yeah, this is the area where the physical challenges of the marathon become unique. So even though we're a little bit chilly standing here, he's probably heating up. He's an engine. He's an engine running hot. His fuel, even though he's been drinking every few kilometers, his fuel stores are running low, and his leg muscles are getting damaged. And this is one of the factors where maybe the shoes are going to help him avoid some of that damage. But mentally too. I mean, if you play a video game for 2 hours, you'll be exhausted. These guys are trying to, or Elliot at this point in particular, is trying to keep his finger in that candle flame for a very long time.
How much did his training help him get to this moment? Because I know that he's run 40 kilometers on a regular basis at 7,000 feet, 2,500 meters of altitude at times. Running around 2:23 marathon pace. Does that specific training get you ready for this moment?
Yeah, there's no substitute for feeling the specific pain you're going to feel. You can't fake it. So you can't protect yourself from muscle damage unless you've experienced that muscle damage. That repeated bout effect means that if you've experienced it once, it won't be as bad the next time. And mentally too, if you haven't been there, you won't be ready for the punches that the marathon's going to throw at you.
We saw earlier in the piece that on Eliud Kipchoge, he talked about how much this is mental. For him, it starts in that mental space more than it is physically. And how much does that really come into play in this type of a moment?
Yeah, I think it's been really fascinating to hear Eliud's comments over the last few months saying that it's really about belief, that he chooses to believe that he can do it. And, I think scientists are learning these days the role that mental fatigue and motivation can play. So he's clearly very strong in the mind. And if you sit and talk to him, there's this aura of confidence and calmness that it's not a put on. He believes he can do it, and that's going to be crucial over the next 20 minutes.
It's funny you use the word aura. The first time I met him, there was this sense about him that there was a charisma about him as an athlete. It was just prior to his victory in Rio. And, calm is the word that I would use in the face of what was going to be a very challenging marathon in the heat of Rio. Here, of course, a different sort of challenge, and we see him trying to hold on to the pacers.
Yeah, it looks like we're getting to the real crunch time. And as for that aura, it's really interesting to wonder, which came first? Does winning the Olympics give you that confidence that you can do anything, or do you have to have that before you can even get to that stage?
As we see, they're almost lapping Elisa with 4 laps to go.
And you know what I identified as maybe him slipping back really was him giving space for the pacers to come in, and he's really become an expert at facilitating the pacing strategy, making room for those pacers to come in, and then getting right key zone so that he can get the best draft off of the pacers.
And I'm really impressed with how well the pacers are sticking together. They've run each section. They've kept in a perfect arrowhead, and that's something that wasn't so well executed back at the rehearsal in March. So the pacers are doing their job, and now it's up to Elliot.
And that was a learning from that practice, and that's one reason the group came to Monza, to sort of pick up that learning. And we talked about earlier that while there is pacing in some of the major city marathons, a lot of times it falls apart. It doesn't provide the shield from the wind that the runners would like. I'm interested in his training, because the continuity that he's had with the same coach, Patrick Sang, through his entire career, and the philosophy that they have, which they call progressing slowly by slowly, really struck me that they're very, very conscious about taking rest days, and that you can't run at your maximum every day. In fact, you should never run at your 100% maximum in training.
Yeah, I mean, obviously we've heard so much about how on their easy days they go easy, but even on the hard days, Elliot is one of those guys who always has another gear, and I think that's a real differentiator, that he's not racing his workouts. He's using his workouts as a way of getting faster, and when his coach tells him, run this fast, that's how fast he runs. He doesn't view it as a challenge to see if he can go faster.
You know, a lot of people were getting very focused on the notion that this race wasn't on a specific day. It might have been today, might have been the next day, might have been the day after, all because of weather considerations. And they said to him, hey, isn't that difficult? Because you don't have that one date to focus on. And he was very nonchalant about it. He says, my job is to train and make sure I'm fit, and I'll run when they tell me the race is going to take place.
Yeah, he's been very trusting in the process. He throughout, any of the details you ask him, he says, look, I know what my job is, and I know what their job is, and I'll do my job.
With under 20 minutes or so to go to possibly witness history, what would this mean for running in the world, this moment?
Yeah, I think we're gonna find that out when it happens, because there's so much. I think there's been very few people who really believed it would happen, and here we are 20 minutes out, and it's within range. And I think people are going to be processing it for a long time, trying to understand what just happened, if it does in fact happen, and how does that translate into other major marathons? Will there be learnings from this that they can take and say, you know what? We're going to start having an arrowhead pacing formation, or we're going to change our start time, or we're going to take something from this to try and go faster.
And we mentioned the Bannister analogy earlier. You know, after Roger Bannister ran sub 4 minutes, it was only a matter of days before someone else did it. And of course, over time, many, many people have done it. Literally over 2,000 people have done it. So it was Galen Rupp who said it just takes one time to give the world the belief that it can be done. And that belief, as well as some of these technical aspects, can really push the boundaries and continue to push the boundaries of marathon.
Yeah, and interestingly, the year before Bannister broke the 4 minute mile, he did a race where he had pacers just like here, jumping in and out, that got him very close. And what he wrote later is that gave him the belief that he could do it the next year.
Exactly, he ran 4:02, I believe, in that race. You know, there have been analogies to the moonshot. People have used that, or trip to Mars, and I think. Talking about the product, that you know, what people don't remember about going to the moon was it did all sorts of things in a variety of fields, right? It accelerated the development of the semiconductor. It miniaturized computers. They even created freeze-dried foods for the astronauts to take. And I think this attempt, to the point you were making earlier, has done the same thing. It's accelerated the development of apparel, of footwear, of some of the thoughts about how to run faster, whether it be the pacing strategies or other things. So regardless of what happens in the next 16 minutes or so, those are there to stay. Those developments are there to stay.
Yeah, and I think there's been a lot of people have had dreams about this kind of thing, that going back to the early 90s when people started talking about, could someone run a sub 2 hour marathon, and here's some of the things you could do. This is the chance to see the ground truth. This is to find out, do these things help enough? Of course, you know, the other question will be, how much of it is that Eliud Kipchoge is just a once in a lifetime? Are we witnessing something that no one will be able to do for another generation, or are there some other things that other people will be able to follow?
This is truly incredible. From where we started in the dark this morning, there was some light drizzle. There was some fear that perhaps some rain would make its way north. That didn't happen. We've seen this incredible pace, and we are on the brink of history in seeing this 2 hour mark broken, the fastest marathon ever run. Mr. Hutchinson, thank you so much for joining us. Hopefully we will too be celebrating with you shortly, and we will throw it down to Kevin Hart.
Oh, you know, I'm sitting here and I'm in awe. I'm in awe of what I'm seeing. I'm in awe at the fact that history is about to be made. I mean, ladies and gentlemen, I don't even see if you guys, if you're not looking at the time, look at the time. It looks like this will be done. I mean, yeah, you should make noise. Noise should be made. I want us to really understand why this is happening. It's because I'm here. My essence is in the air, and I have put that essence on this track. In return, they are taking that essence and pushing themselves to the limit. What I'm saying is that Kevin Hart makes everybody better. Okay? So you over there, I'm throwing all you guys some of this Kevin Hart. You take it. You take it, and I want y'all to throw that Kevin Hart that I just threw y'all, and you throw it on the track. Let's push these men to greatness today. We are pushing them to greatness. We are here, and we are breaking 2. It is unbelievable. We're coming down to the finishing marks. Stay with me. I'm excited. You get excited. I'm throwing it back to you, because I'm watching history right now. Let's go. Oh, my God, that car's going fast. Oh. Yeah. Let's go!
I think that he felt the essence of Blur. I saw Kipchoge take that from you, Kevin Hart. As we have 2 laps to go, we are joined now by Shalane Flanagan, 4-time Olympian. Shalane, what's it been like for you witnessing this as we get closer and closer to this being reality?
I have chills, and not because it's chilly outside. I am just so inspired right now. I have butterflies in my stomach. I am just energy to Eliud and the Pacers to execute right now. I can't believe I'm here. I feel very lucky and very fortunate to be here to witness this today.
Well, it is amazing history, no matter what, right? He's currently projected to run just over 2 hours. 2 hours and 10 seconds at the moment. There have been some moments where it looked like he was having a little trouble hanging on. You were down at trackside, I think. Have you gotten any sense of his rhythm and how he's hanging in there with the Pacers?
So from my perspective, just looked in that zen flow of state. I have seen a little bit of wincing. I couldn't tell if it was smiling, but I think it was a little bit of wincing, unfortunately. His body language, though, from the start, and even now, even just falling off just a little bit, his body language is that of just having still a lot of control.
When we had Ed Caesar up here earlier, he made a good point. He said, no matter what happens, even if we don't see this 2 hour mark broken, this has never happened before. This opens the door to to what is truly possible.
Yeah, with each step that he's taking, he is breaking history, which is phenomenal to think about as an athlete. I hope he's appreciating right now. I know he's probably having to rally mentally. He's going to that place. He may have a personal mantra today to get him through the rough patches. I know I do when I have marathons that I'm preparing for. I have my go-to little sayings to kind of get me through these rough patches. But with each step and each moment, he is making history regardless.
Well, we talk about putting it in perspective, and we talked about it earlier, that to go from 206 to 202.57 took about 16 years. So if you just project that forward, and that world record was set in 2014, it would have taken to 2030 to get under 2 hours and to break this barrier. Runner's World did a study. They crunched the numbers, and they estimated, they looked at 10,000 marathon performances, that it would take until 2075 to break 2 hours. And so the fact that he's close, he's so close right now to that 2 hour barrier, it just sort of opens the mind of human potential. How does it motivate you as an athlete, to think about him taking on this challenge?
It's the fact that he has made this commitment, and he may not achieve this goal, but the fact that he has stated that he wants to break this barrier and he wants to be the man, I think it just shows every person, not even just the runners and athletes, that everyone has a sub-2 barrier and in their life and whatever they want to achieve. And so I think this inspires people to think, what is my sub-2? And how can I start to dream and think bigger than I thought was possible? So he's going to inspire millions of people today. So in these last stages of the race, this is really where the mental toughness comes to play. I think right now, knowing that he's the last athlete is really tough. To not have, the competitors around him, he's just locked into the pacers. This is the toughest part mentally.
And when you think about the fact that they really prepared for this together, and they've been on this journey together for the last couple of years, as much as he wants to be the one to win, he's also running for them.
He is. He wants to be the guy. He wants to. There's a lot of people, when athletes step to the line, that support them. And I think in these moments, they are thinking about the people that have helped them get to this point. And they're drawing the energy and trying to exhibit, this is giving thanks to the people that have helped them.
What about the job that this pacing team has done today, which has just been seamless, and they look to have just put their all out there?
Yeah, they've delivered and over-delivered. The system needed to be perfected, and that's why the test run taught people a lot about how to make it run. The fact that these runners disrupted their racing calendars to come here and be part of this effort, I think, speaks to how the running community and elite runners feel about the importance of this effort. Who's to say that one of the runners in the pacing group might one day be chasing the 2 hour barrier themselves? And what I love is you hear the chatter out there, people talking among themselves, encouraging them to sort of keep it going, encouraging him to stay with them. And here it comes. I mean, we're coming up now to one lap to go as to whether history can be made. And this is where it's really important to talk about the fact that in the London Marathon, he's run sub 440 miles in the last 2 miles, because that's what he's facing now, is having to deliver those kind of performances as he comes up to this last lap.
And you could hear the cheers from those remaining pacers there at the tent. They were screaming at the top of their lungs for him.
Everyone here is very invested, and especially these men pacing, these athletes, they feel as much a part of it as anyone. They're very much invested. They want to say that they helped this effort today and have dreams come true.
I have those butterflies.
For sure.
My skin is starting to stand up, and I can feel it all throughout my body. as we are knocking on the door of history here in our last lap.
But reality is setting in. He's now at 2 hours, 19 seconds expected time, and he's going to have to deliver an Eliud Kipchoge kind of finish. He has been a finisher in his career, whether it was his track career where he won that sort of groundbreaking 5,000 meter victory at the World Championships as an 18-year-old, showing incredible speed at the finish, or his marathon victories where he always finishes with a flourish. He always has something back, but something left. But imagine the strain at this point, having gotten this far and having less than 2.4 kilometers to go. What he's got to rally and pull together.
As you see here, he still looks very collected, but every now and then you see a little bit of a wince, and I'm wondering if he's feeling like he can pull together a big last effort in the last lap here.
He's expressed his love for the marathon, and he says that marathon is life. It's a big journey every time you run it. And he says you feel a lot of pain, but you think a lot of things to get past that pain. And when talking about this attempt, he said, the gap is psychological, and clearly it's not only psychological at this point, but he's going to need to use his brain to will himself physically to stay with these guys and to get to that two-hour barrier.
How hard is it to dig deep for that extra more at a time like this?
It's exceptionally hard. I've had my coach before say, Shalane, why can't you just dig a little deeper? Come on, it's there. But there are limitations to the human body. But the mind, this is the crucial time where it has to override those signals, where the legs are saying, please slow down. And it's hard to ignore when your body is telling you that it does not want to move faster. But knowing that he has about 5 minutes left of running, that's what I do. I break it down into how many minutes I have. And so if he looks up at the clock and says, okay, I've only got 5 minutes of running, Eliud, you can do this, and think back to his training and all the tough moments that he's gotten through. This is the crucial time to use draw from experience, and he's been put in this situation many times, and he has come through with huge performances. So right now, you see his eyes getting bigger. He's taking his last bit of fluid, I imagine, right here, and hopefully, sometimes when you take the last little bit of fluid, you get a little energy surge. You get the sugars in your mouth, and you can almost rally and feel a little bit better after taking some of those fluids. So.
This is incredible. It's down to 4 minutes now, or less than 4 minutes of running. You talked about this, and people wrote about it. People literally wrote a book about it. And here it is. It's within his grasp. And as you say, occasional grimace, almost an occasional smile on his face. He's still in that Zen state. I wondered if the fact that it was not competitive would make a difference. This guy, among everything else that he is as a great athlete, is a fantastic competitor. And the fact that it was running for a barrier, not running to win, would that make a difference? But he seems to still be competing out there. And that's why I still think the possibility, as he's now slipped to 2 hours and 23 seconds for the projected finish time, I think it's still possible, because this is a guy who has finished time and time again with great speed.
And you can see those different moments in his face where as you mentioned before, sometimes a grimace, and then all of a sudden it looks like a calm smile in the midst of the fire.
And looking at his leg turnover, that's perfection right there. He's graceful and beautiful. The Pacers turning around, cheering him on, very much invested in this.
you know, he'll see the finish line from quite a distance when he comes around the turn, and that's when, you know, his natural tendency to finish will come into play. I don't know if there's enough room left to make up what is the distance that he'll have to make up, and now he's about 27 seconds over the projected finish time or the goal of 2 hours. But when he looks up and sees the finish, you have to think that there'll be a spring in his step.
When we arrived here this morning, it was in the hopes of witnessing what was possible. What is possible when you take an idea of a barrier that has not been crossed before? What is possible if you just give it a try?
And he now can see the finish line, and you saw them pointing, encouraging him, everyone alongside, urging him on. In a way, it's a victory lap because what he's achieved is extraordinary.
2 years in the making on this journey. He started as 3 with Lalisa de Sisa and Zersine Tedese, and now Eliud Kipchoge with the Pacers still encouraging him to dig deep.
And he's trying to sprint here, which is incredible.
You can see him go to his arms, pulling him up higher. I call them the sprint hands. This is as much of a sprint as anything right here that you'll see on the track.
An extraordinary effort.
He still looks so incredible. I can't even fathom right now. And holding the finish line tape is Joan Benoit Samuelson and Allison Felix.
Both of them barrier breakers in their own right. And there's the smile.
And he's still jogging.
The intensity in his face in that sprint. I'll never forget that.
His final time is 2 hours and 24 seconds.
Today we found out what else is possible.
Yeah, the official world record, 2:02:57. This will not count for record purposes, but what it did do was show humans what is possible in this event. And this man did something incredible that will last forever.
Well, I'm inspired to go run today. I don't know about you guys, but
He spoke about it being a mental journey, more than it was physical. In all those pieces we watched. And Eliud Kipchoge is with Paula at the finish line. And now I think he's going to have to go on a little sprint to chase him.
Eliud, can we just have a quick look for the... So, I mean, obviously, you just want to thank the guys for part of the team that has really been around you here today. But I just want you, if you can, because I know what that's taken out of you, to try and put into words, because the world has only just learned about the target that you've been working towards for 2 years. And you really laid everything on the line there, and you broke some huge barriers. I mean, you smashed the world record. So you have to believe going forward now that you can go and officially